So Denise, I was actually at a funeral a number of years ago, and a daughter was sharing a story at her mom's funeral. And for years, her mom had always eaten the heel or the end slice of the bread. And so when this daughter got married, she assumed that eating the heel or the end slice of the bread was a good wifely thing to do. And so from when she got married, she continued to eat that slice of bread, even though it wasn't really her favorite. So about 3 years into their marriage, their husband finally gathered up the courage and said, could he please have that end of slice? Because it was actually his most favorite part of the bread. And I think often that we enter into our marriages, and as we live out our marriages, we enter with a lot of preconceived ideas. Sometimes it's because of what we've been taught, and sometimes it's our environment, sometimes it's things that we have observed with other people. But we enter into these preconceived ideas, and we just need to sometimes take a step back and just ask ourselves again, what is it that God is asking us to do in this situation? With all the changes that COVID has brought, lots of changes have happened within our households and our families and in our marriages. And sometimes it's actually affected some of the more intimate and some of the more physical aspects of our marriage. Sometimes people have been overwhelmed with anxiety and frustration, or maybe their mental load is so much that the thought of being intimate with their spouse is just too much. They just cannot do one more thing. There's no quick answers or easy fixes, but we can try to change our response to our spouse. Social distancing rules don't apply to our marriage. Just like we need to carve out intentional time to spend together, we also need to make time in our marriage to be intimate. Sex is a gift from God, and within the bounds of marriage, it is a soul-knitting intimacy that can deepen with time. But it's hard and it feels like a lot of work. Sometimes our environment changes, and sometimes our relationship changes. Sometimes our bodies change, and it's easy to decrease the way or the amount that we show intimacy to our spouse. But I think our challenge today, I think the challenge to myself and to you, is that we would increase in our intimacies, that we would give more and not less, that we would be generous. Sometimes we need to adjust our thinking. A friend of mine was married in Poland more than 70 years ago. And when she was married, the country had been ravaged by war, and her spouse married, and the only place for them to live was with their in-laws in a one-room house. And so in the evening, a bed sheet was hung up in that room, and the room was divided into 2 rooms to give each couple a semblance of privacy. And you know what my friend said about that? She says, I don't know how, but we made it work, and somehow I got pregnant. And we all laugh at that, and we all laugh about how they made it work, but sometimes we do need to adjust our thinking. Sometimes we need to take a step back and realize that what we have been doing is no longer working. We need to communicate with our spouse and express how we've been feeling and talk about the things that we're feeling. But it's okay to think outside the box. It's okay to spend time with our spouse in a different way, or that it's going to look different than maybe what we expected. Again, we come back to the fact that God is a God who has not changed. And in His Word, we're encouraged to honor one another. We're encouraged to serve one another and to love one another. And our challenge is that we would do that with our spouse, that we would serve our spouse, we'd honor our spouse, that we would love our spouse. Men and women are different, and we have different needs. I know sometimes with myself, I know that I need something, but I don't even know sometimes what that is. I want you to take heart that God knows where you're at. God knows what you're feeling, and God knows the struggles that you're going through. And take the time to praise God for your spouse. Thank God for who He is. Make sure you take the time to be intimate with your spouse and to be generous. And just rest in the knowledge that God knows. God knows where you're at, and He's walking alongside with you.